a self-styled Bethesda expert.
Mr. Creetosis, are you a self-styled Bethesda expert?
I have never fucking claimed to be an expert about anything
But
in
wait,
my life.
but he said self-styled, so...
I thought I would go over this EFAP episode, especially as a expert on Creetosis, quotation marks, around whatever you want there. Now, since I don't want to be accused of poisoning the well, I'll be pulling sections from the podcast with my commentary right along with it. Also, so I don't get accused of taking anything that anyone said on this podcast out of context, and that's still probably going to happen. I'll be linking an unlisted video where I play everything that I'm commenting on in this video in full.
Yeah,
so,
it's like,
I mean, it's still, like, why isn't Miniature Nerd in that case? Because Miniature Nerd's thumbnail says that Fallout 3 is better than you think. It seems like he's telling us our opinion's wrong.
What you need to understand first and foremost is whenever it's in the positive, you're automatically in the plus side. Like, you're a thumbs up. Good for you.
It's okay to,
We learned this with Cinema Sins versus Cinema Wins. Cinema Wins is automatically a better man. Yeah.
It's okay. If it's a positive opinion, that's cool. If it's a negative opinion, you're opinionated. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Are they just going to assume that's the case with Creetosis's videos?
You want, as long as you're positive about it. If you say anything negative, then it's automatically bad because it's negative.
The most fascinating example of this to this day is the video from H-Bomber Guy. Let me check it as well. I've said this again and again and again. So it fucking blew my mind at the time. Bloodborne H-Bomber Guy. If I remember correctly, yeah, the video is called Bloodborne is Genius, and here's why. Holy shit, what an agreeable title. Everyone loves Bloodborne. Excellent. And I'm pretty sure it's in this video that he makes the whole shield argument that is absolutely fucking batshit insane. Like, that's like the premise of the whole video. That's why Bloodborne is genius. Bloodborne teaches you that shields are stupid. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I remember watching it with friends and being like, how is this the substance for why Bloodborne is genius? Well, and like most people just agree with the title and like that he's being positive, when in reality he's saying Dark Souls 1 shouldn't be played with shields. It's like, what the fuck? It was a wacky time. And that was a big realization for me about.
And generally, at least Fallout 3 isn't better than you think. Is Creetosis framing Miniature Nerd's opinions as if they're being stated as fact?
Not as simple as it being strictly his opinion. He makes arguments as though they're fact, not something he simply feels. The point of his video is to convince the audience that Fallout 3 is better than they think, not to share how he personally feels about the game, and as such, arguments for or against aspects of its quality can be responded to, especially if those arguments are wrong.
And I don't really know what I think about the comparison right away to H-Bomber Guy here, given he did Fallout 3 is garbage, and here's why.
But he doesn't give a fuck, because Creetosis isn't the main target of the video.
And Creetosis, you're just the appetizer.
Other people's YouTube
The
videos.
true villain.
Why do you phrase it like that? Other people's YouTube videos. What is that? Yeah, commonly. Most YouTube videos are not my own.
Are not mine, yeah.
Which is great, because that surely means he won't have any problem with me doing the same to one of his videos.
Oh, chill.
I always love that statement, as though it's like they want to skip to the part where look at these guys who criticize. They're not very good at taking it. It's like you haven't proven that yet. We haven't even criticized this yet.
I'm desperate for you to say it.
Jesus Christ, what sort of framing are they giving this? What led up to all of this? I believe it was a Reddit post and talking about a meal.
As part of like a job I need to do, that I need to make a 50-hour video on the statement, we don't play out, we play our games, we don't make them. I could do it. It's just that it might get thin at certain points, but like there's so many interpretations and so many things you can explore with that it's just frustrating that everyone decides. Have you ever seen it where the people are like, if Creetosis was in university, he'd be the guy who's failed for putting in too many words.
Well, I mean,
word
the
count
thing is
limit.
that this is YouTube and not university, huh? Where you can make it as long or as short as you want.
Well, I'll have you know that university is. They put those rules in to make the videos better.
No, they put those rules in to make it possible to grade papers.
Exactly.
This is a very weird framing by Mahler here. I'm trying to figure out why Mahler is harping on the long man bad meme here so very much. Yeah, they tell him to get on with it and then go on about something he's not even saying is bad in this moment. I'm not understanding it, but it's EFAP, meant to tear down videos.
Well, no, it gets especially funny when the people they like make super long videos, and then they're like, wait.
No, wait, hold on, wait. And it's like, yeah, why don't you just like calm down and just admit that it's when you don't like it, then it's too long.
Well, it's one of those blackpilling experiences that we get all the fucking time is, Muller or EFAP is X, or Drinker, or any of the people we fucking talked to,
Mhm.
they're X, and you're
What the hell was the lead up to this? Like, seriously, Mahler almost is projecting people talking about long content being bad and hard to really get into here. I'm just not understanding Mahler's sort of prattling on about this when he's not saying there's anything bad about the long content. Yes, never does sort of degrade some of the content by saying, I'm not going to watch all of that, but sheesh. He's harping rather hard on just this sort of lead up to it.
And he never seems to make it around to any kind of point he's trying to make.
Well, that sounds like
Oh, no.
an incredibly uncharitable take.
no.
That's
This
what they
is
were saying 7 years ago when they first came out. The comments are there.
The
Whenever
insane
there's bad,
part of
you can go
this-
there. You can see them. The comments are free. You can take them home.
I haven't seen Creetosis' fucking video, and so I'm going off what you presented to me, Mister Never Knows Best. And you're telling me it's disingenuous to conclude this when it's exactly what I fucking concluded.
That's what. Yeah, we only are going off what you said. We agree
Well-
with him.
And where was the charity when he was describing his channel?
That's true.
That rather sounds like it was influenced by a certain Reddit post.
Oh,
There sounds like it. Bam, nailed.
That's a bit of a
I
jump.
can,
It's
It sounds like
fucking
he was
over,
influenced by a
Creetosis.
Reddit post.
Guilty.
It's in the other direction.
Hmm.
Even
I
if
can
that was
reveal
true.
the secrets of this. I was aware of the Reddit post. I did not look at it at all for my breakdown of the speech.
Now I'm
Oh, yeah,
picturing,
because your brain
conclusions.
probably heard the words Reddit post.
I'm
and went
picturing
from there.
a court, and Creetosis is on the stand, and they're like, "Mr. Creetosis, did you or did you not use the Reddit post as influence for your video on the subject?" You go, "No." See how he lies? Do you see? Do you
See how he lies so boldly in front of you?
This is the extent that he will argue that the Reddit post is relevant to the Creetosis section.
Yeah, I don't think it gets brought up
Guilty.
again, does it?
Guilty.
Does Never really do that? Do they not understand what Never is doing here? He's saying it sounds awfully like the Reddit post. Not that he knows Creetosis read the Reddit post.
Your Honor,
Yes.
relevance.
Yet Creetosis describes this as
He also wastes some time rambling about how his parents came to the city he's doing the speech in on a vacation.
That is a
So
perfectly
he was mean and you were
reasonable-
nice.
It's a perfectly reasonable point of view to have when you think the whole thing is focused on like the fucking perspective on how to write games.
Yes, but is that the perspective people should have from this speech? Is that the normal thing to do? Someone uploads a speech given to an audience at a conference, not a classroom, focused on teaching how to write story in video games.
I don't give a shit about other games made in Denmark. But like,
Yeah.
this is what I mean. If someone said like, "Oh, so they can't do that," it's like, well, you
Scandinavia, don't
can,
fucking
but I'm also entitled to say that it's irrelevant.
It's a place where games are made. I suppose he's trying to endear himself to the audience, but it's just not necessary.
so.
That's true.
According to
You even like qualified. This is so little to take issue with.
Creetosis, Emil is wasting time rambling, trying to endear himself to the audience,
Probably
Yeah.
yes.
as if
Yeah.
being nice is something bad and manipulative.
That's
Whoa,
not being nice.
whoa. Whoa.
This guy's got some demons that he's fighting with.
Damn.
This guy is. What do you mean? Do you have a problem with people being nice?
Yes, he's used the power of divination to find out my true feelings. The fact that he's trying to be endearing is clearly a fucking insidious manipulation.
I was going to say, like, it's like, do we even bother saying straw man? It feels like a fucking cliche. Like, that's not what he said. You said something else.
Just about everyone knows of this at this point.
As Mueller pointed out, he didn't even watch this video, much less Creetosis' 8-hour video. Fallout 3 isn't better than you think. Now, maybe Creetosis' video on Emil isn't as bad as these examples from his video on Many a True Nerds, but thought I would just include this just in case people got the wrong impression about what Creetosis does within his videos. Isn't it good to have a Creetosis expert on hand?
Is a disaster.
John is admitting that both Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3 are equally good in different ways.
Here's the thing. You can point out the bad fans in any discussion, so your opposition looks unreliable or even crazy. Furthermore, why start off the video with a statement that seems designed to annoy people? The phrasing, "to my mind, in some ways, I think it's actually the best Fallout game of all," is a really weird thing to say. What John is essentially saying here is that Fallout 3 does some things better than any of the other games. As a statement, I can't do much with it until it's qualified and references are provided, but the specific wording of the phrase makes it sound like he's saying it's the best Fallout game.
And all of this is just not necessary.
Yeah.
Well, thank God we have resident Emil expert Creetosis here to decode what Emil.
You can
really-
wait.
For the record, I agree. That probably was a step too far. But I do know Creetosis has implied certain things about certain people when they said certain things. So Never definitely did make a mistake in framing it that way here. I said it myself, he definitely crosses the line for unknown reasons. Is this a trap that he knew that Pat and Cree would take this to EFAP? Is he a 4D chess player to know this far, or he just laced his video with the same sort of styling that the person doing the videos typically do to illustrate a point? That was my impression of the video, but I am actually aware of Creetosis' content. Same with Pat. Wasn't critical of Pat until this particular video on Starfield and his insane design document thesis. That turned out to be rather weak and based on very little evidence.
Mr.
You can-
Creetosis, have you ever said that you are the resident ML expert?
I've never claimed to be an expert about anything.
Do you see how he lies? Look at him, lying yet again,
See how he lies?
lying.
Look, do you see how he lies?
Oh, sorry.
Also,
If that is Mahler's true opinion on it, that's fine. My particular reading is it's a use of ironic humor. I guess it depends on the framing you want to give it and the context of the actual video. Just want to note, Mahler might be joking here with ironic humor himself.
And to decide what is and isn't necessary to talk about at a Danish games conference.
bro, that's what all of us individually decide. That's what you've decided.
He decided it was relevant. Yeah.
Exactly. Why are you saying it like that? Like, how could Creetosis possibly know what's relevant at a
How could
Swedish
Creetosis- yeah.
game conference? Like,
Yeah, pass judgment on what is or isn't
They just-
relevant.
they're talking about like the writing in fucking Subway Surfers, and then they just have like clowns come on screen and just juggle. And you're like, I don't see how relevant this is. Like, how would you know? Are you Swedish? You're like, I guess you're right. I don't know.
You know what? I'm not Swedish. Juggle on.
Swedish clowns? More power to you.
I mean, taking 30 seconds to acknowledge the contributions of Danish game developers, unnecessary. Keep it on topic, i.e. Bethesda. And if
It feels like you just justified the argument. You just said like, well, it didn't take long. Like, oh, so you feel like there's merit then to the idea that this isn't relevant to talking about the writing in Bethesda. It's okay
Mhm.
to accept that it's a harsh perspective to have, but that you understand where it comes from.
any Danish game
Papa
developer
who
has a
said.
problem with that, tough. Get your own games conference. I mean, get another.
What is this
What?
argument?
Why? Why do you read so far into it and then
What
invent
a
shit?
bizarre
Stop.
thing to say. Oh, that's a shitty logo.
It's
for
just
the
it's just
festival.
irrelevant. Like, come on.
It's a joke. If there's anything you should be doing, guys, it's making fun of it. And maybe that's what they're doing here. You know, I have to wonder if this is really what other people were seeing with EFAP and had a problem with EFAPs, or if it's just gone even further than what I remember it. Gonna have to watch some past episodes and see if I see the same thing being done in the past.
The purpose of your entire country is to talk about Bethesda, and don't
Stop. Calm
Is
down.
that supposed to be his impression of you?
Yeah, he's inferred all this
Because it's
insane
not-
shit.
It's not very good.
I've
It's like
said
his
one
physical,
thing.
his voice has changed.
Like, I can't even saying this because it's just like I told you, my initial perspective was like it's offhand, I don't care about it. But now he's making me analyze you. I'm like, so what Creetosis was saying was that under the guise of a speech about writing disciplines, he doesn't see the value in talking about how Denmark is responsible for other games.
No, listen, it's an ARG. He's trying to prove to Creetosis what irrelevant actually looks like by going on an irrelevant tangent.
Why is Pat going on the ARG sort of irrelevant theory of his? Maybe it's a setup for a joke. You can criticize the joke, but are they going to recognize this is a joke, or at least an attempt at a joke with some satirical punch? And maybe Pat referring to it as an ARG is also a joke. This is getting way too meta for me. Okay, I don't know what's real anymore. Jokes on top of jokes. Nitpicks on top of nitpicks. Even me responding to a response of this video.
I love how
Show him.
I do
wanna
I
know
do
anyone.
see the point of view that it's a trap, but to me this fits perfectly with an inept idiot like trying to make a response. It's
Well,
like,
yeah, because why have we put so much into just an offhand observation about?
Yeah, the trap narrative. Maybe I would just call it bait. And yeah, sure. Assume the person making a video on you is stupid. That's another perspective that can just completely dismiss this video wholesale.
How it was kind of a rambly intro to like, wow, what a piece of shit you are for downplaying the accomplishments of Denmark. What the hell is this?
That's funny.
What is this?
Do you guys ever forget that?
But he never said
What's
that
with
the
the
conference
fucking-
just has to be about Bethesda.
Dude, that
It's
pregnant fucking pause. Holy shit. I just want everyone to
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Absolutely not. The purpose of your entire country is to talk about Bethesda, and don't you guys ever forget that.
It's so forced.
It's very forced, yeah.
The
Sorry,
way his
I
vo-
think
his
I got a
voice
bit
is almost
carried
breaking.
away
Ah,
there again.
That was you getting
Oh,
carried away.
okay.
God,
It's okay. It was a
tepid milk
meme.
toast loser.
It was a meme.
That's
It was
his
a
version
meme
of
that
being
was-
carried away.
Well, it was a meme that was obviously meant to belie some sort of real criticism that you're meant to take seriously. So just to be clear, obviously
yeah.
there's a criticism there.
Yeah, there is a criticism there. Why is he calling it a meme? If I called it anything, I would call it a satirical joke, which Never's video falls into a lot. Is it a trap? Is it bait? Is it ARG? I don't know. I like to look at the outcome and what reception it gets. The pinned comment from Never seems to be the sort of point of this. Is there any more to Never's ARG trap bait joke thing? I don't know. I guess we'll all have to wait and find out next time on DBZ or E EFAP Z.
And then it'll be
This
like,
gives
oh,
me,
sorry guys, I'm just memeing. I'm just joking around or something.
This gives me the energy of someone who apologizes when they say the word damn.
Anyway, Creetosis' video is too long for me to show all of it, although feel free to watch it for
Thank you.
Weak, cowardly, weak.
yourself. It does do quite a good job at speaking for itself. Still, the
Thank you.
important point
I mean,
want
it's
to make
not
clear
aimed
to
at me,
people
but thank you.
is how Creetosis frames what Emil says as
Okay.
negatively as possible
All right.
throughout the entire video and in
Kind of like
every
what
point.
just happened. Is that the performance art that he just did
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, he's teaching him how it
Ah.
feels.
Oh, I see. Okay.
No, he's
Cool.
gonna
That's an
verbatim say
interesting
that.
Meme. That's
He's gonna-
an
So
interesting
this
meme
is like a
right
meme
there.
in a meme. The meme of his used another meme.
Mm.
So what's the point?
Negative words mean.
Well, the
Cry.
Creetosis was a meme.
Why do they keep referring to this as a meme? Is it because Never later on goes on to say the no design document Pat claimed as a meme? Are they going to draw that comparison? Because I don't think that this joke of Never's would be a meme on the same level of Pat no design document meme later on.
We've
But I mean,
encountered
if
a few
this is
people
part
like
of the
that.
meme, if this is the meme, what happens if you disagree with the examples that are pointed out in terms of a mountain being made out of a molehill, for
Yeah,
instance?
now I'm getting confused as to what I'm supposed to be agreeing with here.
Well, I guess if this is all a big performance about like Steve making a mountain out of a molehill, that's what I just did. But like, yeah, but what happens if
That's a very good thing to point out. What if they don't know about any of this? Now, if I start seeing the thing about Dane for them on Creetosis' videos and online, maybe they can make the case that this Danish line was a meme and not just a joke.
example, instead of saying things like Emil says, Creetosis will say Emil rambles to make the
Kind
very
of.
act of speaking in a speech somehow seem like a sin.
But what if he ended up
Somehow seem
What
like a
if he
sin.
had one?
I
Yeah.
want to point this out too. Creetosis frames everything as negatively as possible. He says rambling instead of says to make everything, or to make the act of speaking seem like a sin. He's doing to me what he just claimed I'm doing to ML.
Well,
But
what's-
that's the
Yeah, but-
point. You're being
Yeah,
taught
but
a lesson.
he's wearing the magical cloak of 6 layers of irony. Uno reverse cards.
I'm not sure about 6 layers, but let me not nitpick Rags's point. At least they're acknowledging this is dripping with irony. Still, the framing as a meme, I hope they don't keep that up. Because frankly, the irony of turning meme into a meme about this video is simply just something that would blow my freaking mind. If anyone could do it, I'm sure Rags would try to do it. The irony of that is just out of this world.
Disjointed mess.
I would like to point out that Creetosis' summary of Emil's speech is longer than Emil's speech, and if you're
of course, because he's
It's not a-
responding to it
Wait,
while.
It's not a
He's
summary.
breaking it down.
Yep.
It's not a summary.
How can it? If you're playing
Breaking
clips
down
and
Camille
responding to it,
Pagliuolo's writing speed.
very
Of
much
course
more than
it's
likely going to be
gonna-
fucking
yeah.
longer.
Yeah, I'm torn with the word choice of summary. There's not enough context for that. I guess it is incorrect to say the summary. But if this is a trap or bait, why did he choose that particular word? Is it a bait word to get responses like this? See, when you consider it a bait or a trap or ARG as Pat likes to frame it. I'm wondering if it's because of the Mama Max stuff that Pat is doing that, or completely unrelated. It's just another meme he wants to place on someone else. I really don't understand that framing. ARG, Pat, please do explain it. I don't think that video was that deep. But then again, I could be wrong.
You know what he's going to say.
Yeah,
you know
this
exactly
is just
what he's gonna
this is
say.
particularly just triggering because this is just we get this all the fucking time.
Even more rambling, the meandering, rambling, disjointed mess.
I would like to point out that
I love that he ends on disjointed mess and then has a disjointed cut.
Yeah, but that was an artistic choice.
Yes.
Yeah,
His
that was
summary of
integral to
Emil's
the
speech
video.
is longer than Emil's speech, and if your summary is longer than the original, I don't think you can really criticize others for rambling.
I mean, yeah, if it was a summary, that might be a point. Yeah, but it's not a summary.
It's not a point even with a summary. Make the summary as long as it needs to fucking be. Holy shit!
Is that why his part on the speech was so short?
Well, it's just
Because he has the self-imposed rule.
If it is longer, it is as or more unnecessarily long. It is as or more like unnecessarily filled with fluff words and restatements that are worthless. I just find that funny. There's no point here. It's a non sequitur.
A significant level of like a powerful political position person made a speech that was
hilarious. He calls it a summary while showing it on screen, where it's titled both
breaking down
in the title and the thumbnail breaking down, which implies it's different from like. Come on, Never Knows Best. You're not this stupid. You're not a child.
Just a lie. That's just a lie.
Yeah, this one's complicated in terms of like, is this incompetence? Like, Never Knows Best knows what English are. Like, so I don't know. Like, it's hard to say that this is a.
Yeah, I think that's the basis of Pat saying that this is an ARG or something like this. The fact that he calls it a summary, then he clearly shows it's a breakdown on the screen. Still, the logic of Pat's video is beyond me. He would have to make a better case for it, and that particular framing sort of discounts the actual point of the video. I could have told Never Knows Best that don't use weird word choices when going after one of these long men, but maybe he doesn't care, or maybe he doesn't know the best way to go about this. Or maybe this is some 4D chest and he predicted all of this to come and has a ace card hidden up his sleeve. I sort of doubt it, but I'm curious to see how it's going to play out, or if there's going to be any sort of reaction at all.
You'll notice when watching this that he didn't actually say anything of substance. He shows
Is that a
one of the
personal
most
attack?
recognizable faces of anime.
It's
and
not a
says
petty
people might
personal
not
attack.
recognize him. I don't even need to comment on how fucking retreaded this is.
Oh, that's the picture he uses? Yeah, I would have been like,
what
oh,
a
I've seen that guy
coincidence.
before.
I find it difficult to play your stuff too.
Is that a
Christ.
personal attack?
Ooh, that was pretty fucking petty of you, bro. You better.
Dang, you're making negative criticism about the product
This is the
that
thing.
he's selling to you for money.
If he had made a video about me and said that you called someone a cabbage, that's pretty petty. I'd be like, I don't even know what to say to you.
I mean, like, I guess, like,
you got.
Oh, going back to the Joseph Anderson thing he was pissed off about. I wonder how many personal sort of references Mahler's going to throw into this. I'm wondering if Mahler is sort of taking this personally himself, because he can see himself in both Pat and Creetosis. I hope to God not. But I am curious how these boys at EFAP are going to actually react to the actual meme of the no design document issue. Are they going to move the goalposts like it seems like a lot of people are trying to do? Doesn't matter if there was no design document, it was just a meme. It feels like there isn't a design document. It's something I've noticed that really has been annoying me recently because, frankly, I think knowing the objective reality of things could be important to people and not giving people the wrong idea of the objective reality we live in. Something I think Mahler would actually take seriously. But if you treat this whole video like a joke, maybe you can dismiss the actual real instances of criticism within the video.
Not sure what this has to do with story writing, but okay.
This, by the way, relates to story writing because he's talking about drawing from personal experience in his writing, this time with growing
that's
up
not
in
a
Boston.
story.
That's not. Yeah,
That's
that's
not a story.
location.
That's not. That's,
That's
not
like
that's just like an
Easter egg.
It's like a okay, you know,
Yeah,
that's like an
it's
Easter
not
egg.
even
But only
but-
he fucking
I
cares.
was about to say it's like a personal
So
Easter
that's
egg,
an
which is the
Easter egg
worst
for
kind of
him.
Easter egg. Yeah,
And the part about his bedroom is just a lie.
because to clarify, because I'm just going from what he has summarized your video as, Creetosis. You're saying I don't know what him including his bedroom in a game has to do with writing advice.
Largely that, and also the whole section about places in Boston he knows. I'm highlighting that because I'm going to bring it up after this next clip.
And then moving on to, well, he said, write what you know. So if you lived in a place, put that place into the game, that counts as writing. It's like, this is a bit of a leap, I think. This is just a bit silly.
See, this is the problem with EFAP. They're impatient. I hope they go, oh, it was a joke he threw in there.
Light-hearted joke. Creetosis, if you're ever unsure how to identify jokes, a good way is to just listen to whether the audience laughs.
See, this one this is really funny. It's funny, like the whole look at all the personal attacks that he makes, and then he does it, but he does it in kind of like a little softer tone, and then it just slides.
Well,
by
remember,
as
he's
being
doing it.
short.
He's doing it to defend something too. So he's.
Oh, that's true. So
he's
it's
being
okay.
negative on a
You can
negative,
use
which
the
is
same
positive.
tactics. You could use the same strategies as long as you use them against the bad guy.
Okay, they identify the sort of ironic use of humor here, which I will agree with. Is this all going to come down to the hypocrisy argument? Is EFAP really going to defend the hypocrisy take, use that shield here? Or are they memeing it? Because I'm sure they've gotten a lot worse than this. And they're injecting a certain amount of personal bias that isn't actually in Never's video. That because Creetosis is talking negatively about something, they're sort of, I'm not seeing how they actually are making that connection into this. That's a reading they seem to be placing on it. I mean, if they had some examples of never doing this before outside of this video, there would be a much stronger case to make that particular argument with this video. But I have not actually seen that. That is where some external material would be very helpful in determining Never's intent here. But they're just running with it because I guess they feel like this is similar to attacks that have been levied at them before. That's the impression that I'm getting from this.
Him putting his room in the game, how is that a joke? That's not a joke. That's a description of a thing.
Well, it's something that the audience laughed at, therefore a joke, therefore something you shouldn't take seriously.
Oh, so
I also
shocked is all that I'm getting from that.
I also hope that he doesn't misidentify a joke later in this video.
And also, how is Creetosis supposed to identify a joke if he's alone then?
Well, that's funny, but also
he's not an audience.
Audience
You
can
put a laugh
laugh,
track in.
but audiences can laugh for things a lot more than just jokes, like things that can be funny when they're not jokes. You know what I mean? Like a reality that's
nervous
amusing.
laughter.
Yeah, there's that too.
Here's context.
And that is where I grew up. Humble place. That's the street I grew up. And of course, I had to put my bedroom in the game. Right?
That's your bedroom?
Yeah, that wasn't a joke. That's not a joke.
That wasn't a joke.
Okay. Are they the authority on jokes now? I'm not getting why they can say that is not a joke. Maybe they'll clarify if that was a joke, it was a bad joke and we don't get it.
From the clip is that why the audience are laughing is that he says this is my bedroom and it presents just a mattress in a room. It's like, oh, yeah, it's quite a bedroom. But it's like, oh, so he was joking. It's like, just because people are laughing doesn't mean it's a joke. It could mean that it's actually kind of funny because it's sad. Just a little bit, that would be your bedroom.
How would that not be a joke? Visual humor. He has a slideshow. I'm just not getting why they're sort of trying to dismiss the fact that Emil was trying to make a joke there. It's baffling to me. Why not roll with the premise? Never is laying out there. Steel man someone's position for once instead of casting doubt at every little thing being said.
The more complex and detailed the world, events, and characters are, the better.
I
I
don't agree with that.
I agree with that.
No, don't agree with that.
I don't think
In a Fallout game?
No, in storytelling in general,
storytelling.
and including in Fallout potentially. No.
Yeah, I don't see what Fallout how that would change in Fallout context.
Yeah,
Complexity is complicated in terms of like rating. Say, for example, you put a Lord of the Rings against a Matrix, and you're like, which one's more complicated? Say they were both as good as you think they're both excellent. It's like, so which is more complicated is the answer to which one's better. I'd be like, whoa. I don't even know that would give you any kind of answer. I can understand why you would have come to a conclusion like that, but I feel that it's more complicated than that. You know, like the simplistic fairy tales and stuff.
Someone said like Aesop's Fables and stuff like that. Aesop's Fables is better than Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, I really wanted to know their reading on this. Thank God. Only Rags is dumb enough to really bring that up. The context of this is Emil's just talking about storytelling. Now, even within the context of Fallout story writing, you can keep it simple. Use that simplistic story style and graph parts onto it to make it ever more complex. And I don't know, maybe trying to figure out how to fit different storylines together in the end. Not that I'm saying Fallout 4 did that, but as a baseline rule, yeah, keep it simple, stupid is decent advice.
Considerably more complicated than the tortoise and the hare. That's a better story, or the grasshopper and the ants, or yeah, any given like straightforward parable or anything like that. Simplicity and complexity don't necessarily tell us anything about whether or not
I
it's
was
good or
I
bad.
was going to bring up what this chatter brought up, the Dune movie. It's quite a complex story for it could be made much simpler than it is, but it benefits from that complexity.
God, Pat. At its core, Dune is a very simple story. You add in all the little details to make that simple story seem much more complex. It's a layering process. If you want to get down to the bare bones of Dune, it's about the chosen one. Now, if you want to get into a complex story, it even takes the simple story of something like The Chosen One and sort of subverts it, like with the Mistborn trilogy from Brandon Sanderson. But it still takes something simple and gives it a twist.
If
Yeah, I
it's done
shouldn't have
well,
made
yeah.
a statement. I should have worded that differently because yeah, there are simple stories that I like. Dread is a great movie, and the story is 90% of it is shooting people, and it's great.
Mm.
So
Well, I think what's interesting about the idea of whether or not simplicity or complexity is better when it comes to storytelling, it does depend on what the writer's objectives are. Well, someone's pointed out, complexity does not necessarily equal depth, which would be the thing that's
Sure.
worth pointing out.
yes,
You can
Yeah,
add
Rebel
more and more
Moon is
variables to a
complex,
story,
but
or more characters, or a more intricate plot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to have a greater amount of depth. And sometimes, like by focusing in on a very specific, it's kind of funny because it was in his speech, but the thing is that there's like so much additional context you would have to explain. If you could like focus in on one theme and explain.
Yeah, I'm glad they're sort of going over it, and I'm glad at least Fringy understands this concept and that they're all seeming to come to the ultimate, and everyone seems to be coming to this ultimate guide that they're taking out. Maybe this is part of the ARG trap bait of Never's video, but it's fun to play into that little theory of Pat's. Hell, it could even be true. Only took him in private sessions like one night of brainstorming and watching the video to come up with that.
To emphasize,
Yeah.
we're in a part talking about changing Immel's meaning. So he has to demonstrate why what Creetosis said was changing his meaning.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it sounds
This
like
is true.
you
It does not
disagreed
apply-
with what he said, not that you were changing the
We
meaning of
shall
what he said.
see.
I just story
I've got something
writing.
to say after the clip.
In the creation of fiction, the more complex and detailed the world, events, and characters are, the better.
Remember, Emil said he uses this rule in relation to themes and that he thinks having a single strong central theme is good.
So boy, do I have some stuff to say here. He skipped about 13 minutes of video where I go very in depth on themes of Skyrim and what he claims the theme of Fallout 4 is, and just talking in general about themes and how he fucks up the discussion of themes at one point by saying the post-apocalypse in 1950s Americana is a theme.
No, don't let him get away with this, guys. That actually adds to Never's point.
Fallout 4 is about 1950s Americana, or Fallout 4 is about, the post-apocalypse. But at its core, Fallout 4 is about androids that look like humans, okay?
He's saying that people might see it as a theme. Emil in the speech, I agree with the sentiment. It's not very well structured, but have they brought up audience yet who he's trying to convey these ideas to? Just like with most YouTube videos and even EFAP in general, you're trying to sort of convey simple ideas to an audience of a broad range of knowledge within the field. And that's something I'm just assuming. I don't know who's in the audience and who Emil was told he was being told to have this sort of speech that he came up with to this conference from. There's just way too many things, unknown variables to assume. So much that gets assumed about this particular YouTube video. That's why people using it as sort of a piece of evidence to Emil's particular skills seems rather flawed. But again, by adding the additional context Creetosis does in his video and here, it sort of actually supports Never's argument within the video, which he didn't actually include in the video. So good job, Cree.
To get to this point of, hey, stories are better if they're more complex.
That
Yeah,
doesn't seem very fair of him.
Well, it seems as though if we were to
Nothing else
cover
is
your
things.
assessment and response to him, we would never entertain the idea that you've misrepresented him as opposed to just entertaining your point of view and your disagreement with him. You know what I mean? Like, we wouldn't even entertain the idea. It's like, oh, how could you? You've ruined his initial meaning because you have focused on a complex story while he's talking about themes being nice as a foundational, simple thing, which, like I said, I still disagree with as well. A very strange statement.
This is the funny thing too, is in his speech, ML claims that the core theme of Fallout 4 is suspicion.
Which Never Knows Best actually included in his own video on Fallout 4.
Still, Fallout 4 hints at this theme of paranoia and trust, but it doesn't do anything with it.
Did he get that from Emil's speech here, or was he able to read that actual theme within the actual story? Good questions to have. That's what happens when you actually do research on the person you're talking about. You learn these little things. That being said, I don't even know Never didn't do his proper research. He might have just acted like he didn't do the proper research as the bait or trap component of his video. Again, probably gonna reiterate this. Never's video was definitely structured in a very weird way that sent up flags. Why I'm not outright dismissing Pat's sort of ARG theory, but still very doubtful of that.
I was actually about to just say that if what Emil's saying here is in regards of writing themes, you should keep it simple, stupid. I was just sort of going through my memory, trying to figure out what the fuck the themes were for Skyrim and Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. I'm like, what were the themes of those games? If keep it simple, stupid is the strategy for writing them.
That's the thing is they don't really have themes in a conventional literary sense.
What do they have it in instead?
So
kind of
ML...
just like side plot lines, just minor things. It's a lot of just giving you things to do to justify gameplay. It's not so much focused on like high-end literary concepts. I think Emil just thinks it's that way.
Yeah, he first goes on about how Skyrim is about dragons in the studio. Everyone was talking about how it's about dragons, but
that's not a
real
theme.
No, I know. But the real theme of Skyrim is the lone hero, the hero's journey. He even says that it's one of their more biblical stories. The Dragonborn is very much a messiah figure. It's like, what the fuck are you smoking?
Is this? Yeah, I haven't played Skyrim really. Is that the?
No.
Because I'm like,
okay.
I don't think that's true.
Because there's no low point for the
Creetosis.
story.
I mean,
I don't think that's true. Depends on your point of view or your perspective here, because at one point the dreaded last dragon, Arduin or something like that, you have to go to the afterlife to get the final shout to actually defeat him by the end. There's also plenty of other bumps along the way. Plus, I don't know what that has to do with what Emil was talking about, the Messiah-like figure, unless they're taking it directly from like Fallout 3 where you have to die on the cross. There's several things the Dragonborn have to overcome and learn about to actually live up to the prophecy of the Dragonborn in Skyrim, at least as far as I remember it.
Creetosis, on the other hand, is claiming that Emil applies this rule to all writing and all aspects of storytelling, and Emil claims all parts of stories should be as simple as possible.
I thought that Emil said that this not only applies to all of gaming, like he introduces it by saying, this is the clip he used in this video, that this is like a design perspective, but that applied to writing, it refers to, and then he said like his own personal point of view, which is theme. You know what I mean? Like that this is applied to a shit ton.
Well, if the problem of this video's construction is that instead of giving us that shit 7 hours ago, why don't you play the part about keep it simple, stupid here?
Yeah.
Because I can't quite remember the specifics of what Emil said. You need to play it now when you're contrasting it with what Creetosis said.
In an ideal world, you would have watched the full talk before this, and you would go to the talk.
No ideal
world
has me watching this.
And also at this point, I think they tripled the runtime of how much this video has been playing. So of course, Rags has forgotten about the point from earlier. From an actual entertainment or clarity perspective, I would agree with Rags here, but that's clearly not what Never's video is really trying to outline here.
Okay.
I also want to point out the thing he claims I said is not something I ever said, which is why he doesn't play the clip of me saying it.
And
Well,
also, it's
this-
not changing his meaning. At best, it's just an extract.
I've been back and forth on this point, and I'm not even sure if that's correct. Creetosis rambles too much for me to really make much sense of this, and he might have cut that particular section of Never's video out to make it seem that way. And I do know Pat for sure did cut out some context to sort of claim Never made a claim that he did that was incorrect or mischaracterizing him. Only reason I'm not going to give Pat shit about that because Pat's video was clearly not a serious response. So seriously responding and saying you did the same exact thing that Never did, that he claimed you did, would just feel completely ridiculous to actually do. This is why I hate the hypocrisy claim. Everybody's misrepresenting everyone to try to illustrate a point or for comedy or for some goddamn reason. But that's probably what elevated this video as high up as gone. And Pat also had in his little video, he didn't think this would work out how Never thought it would. I don't know how Pat knows what Never thought the video's effect would be in reality or what he thought about it. I think he just went off of some basic assumptions, what he would have done without realizing clearly Never has a different style and probably completely different motives for why he made his video.
Which is something that Emil has never said and yet frequently appears in Reddit posts and YouTube comments.
My God.
Creetosis then goes on to prove why this fake rule is bad. Good job, Creetosis.
Oh, don't you complain about straw manning.
Yeah, good job, Creetosis, proving that it's bad.
But the point I'm making is that not every story should be something simple, especially when you're dealing with a large open world RPG with plenty of factions and decades of lore behind it.
He does the same thing with the second
Fair?
rule.
Yeah, you could
Yeah, I
do
mean
that.
that's
You can
more
make it-
agreeable
if
as far as I'm concerned. Like
you're
when,
Yeah, if you're a big studio with all this shit to work with, like, you know, you could jazz it up a bit. You know,
well, what's
you
funny
could give
is
a shit.
keep it simple, stupid could apply to the components of a story and the components, to the components, if you know what I mean. Keep all of those individual things simple and straightforward, and then when they build up all together, it makes a very complicated overall image of a story. But this is what I mean. The clips he showed
lot
us
of
of
games
Emil
do that.
talking about it with
So are they just gonna ignore that Never's point is in fact correct? Emil never did say that. I think Mahler might have brought up the point that Creetosis abstracted that from Emil's comment and then rambled on a little bit about how it makes sense with all this other stuff, why he's actually agreeing with the KISS principle again in a completely different context, which I actually agree with, that you have a whole bunch of simple concepts and sort of building them upon themselves, layering, interconnecting like a web can create that complex story that writers tend to do when it's logically consistent within the story.
broadly speaking, keep your story simple. I'd be like, well, I mean, hey, that's not great
maybe
advice every time.
Maybe
is it?
that's the strategy. He because I mean, it was even acknowledged that a lot of the caveats that he gave, that he knew that speech wasn't great.
Yeah.
So by putting it at the beginning of the video and then paraphrasing his speech later on in the video in a more in a way with greater clarity,
In a more
it means that
useful
he'll forget what he actually said. And
Why is this video getting everyone to come up with all these crazy conspiracy theories? Theorizing. Maybe that is the trap. Maybe that is the bait. Having people guessing when the beginning section's more of a red herring or a trap for these type of commentators to react to. Pat in his own video even theorized that Never, for some unknown reason that is beyond me, would think that Pat and Cree would actually react to it in a live stream, much like this EFAP here, instead of creating their own videos, which adds a layer of hypocrisy, in my opinion, to this sort of ironic meta mess out there, which I'm even adding to now.
how we said it before, and you'll just take his rephrasing of
Well,
it as
I still think
accurate.
even if you're gonna lie. Don't do like this weird thing where you play me clips that put me against Emil to begin with.
Yeah, but remember, he put them so early that you've forgotten them.
I haven't though.
Lying is a skill,
Well,
and some people are shitty at it.
Fortunately, you've got really good memory. He didn't account for the long memory.
Okay, if Never really did do that, what does that tell you about this sort of style where you make it long? It seems very ironic Fringy would bring up this point when it could work completely against EFAP as a concept. Even more so, I meant points in the beginning of Never's video will be lost during the 10-hour stream that they go over this 2-hour video. So I really hope they don't build in this point, because it would be absolutely hypocritical and stupid for them to do so.
Write what you know.
He concludes that write what you know simply means draw from your personal experience, and it takes a lot of inane rambling to get to this point. This is also a point I very much disagree with. You can write good stories without direct first-hand knowledge or personal experience. You can be inspired by someone else's experience they're told to you, or that you hear of to write great things.
So Creetosis,
Though that could be a semantic thing of like when someone tells you their experiences, does that become then your knowledge? Is that still their experience or your first-hand? You know what I mean? That's like a semantic thing to an extent, but that still wouldn't. I kind of agree with you. Is kind of what I'm getting at with that anyway.
claims Emil's rule is
Sorry, I was just gonna say I love what he says here. This is probably my favorite part of the video.
All right.
only write about things you have first-hand experience with, and yet in reality, all Emil said was
There it is.
draw from your own experiences. He did not say
That's not what he said.
So he's making a distinction between personal first-hand experiences and
Personal and first-hand.
personal experiences.
But he doesn't
That
say
is-
personal experience. He just says experience.
Draw from your experience. Your experience implies that it's firsthand. If you say your experience, if you say it,
Doesn't this sort of help Never's point here? Yes, Never phrased that incorrectly, but doesn't this actually prove the overall point that Creetosis does heavily imply that this is what Emil is trying to say with this, when it's really way too vague to actually say much about that, or to come to that particular determination about this speech and Emil's writing from this speech?
This is just
if you say
childish. Like the personal first-hand or general experience. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, okay, what Creetosis took from what he said was that you draw from whatever you've done in your life, when he's saying that you can draw from a hell of a lot more than that. Like, yeah,
Justice, did you say the words first-hand experience?
I said first-hand or personal experience.
yeah, this is petty.
Okay. The synonym squad.
Emil's rule is only
Really? Is Mueller going to call something petty the famous nitpicker? I mean, if Never does want to make a video in response to all this mess, I sort of doubt he would. He could create a hypocrisy tsunami. And I'm not saying it's wrong for Mueller to point any of this out. It's just funny to me. The irony of this is actually beautiful when you think about it.
write about things you have first-hand experience with, and yet in reality, all Emil said
There
was
it is, on
draw from
screen.
your own experiences.
yeah, your
It's on
your,
screen.
as in your belonging to you.
It's literally, yeah, it's on screen. Draw upon your personal experiences.
He had to turn the captions on and record this.
He did not say they have to be first-hand, and in fact, the
He said they have to be personal,
personal.
or he said that
Oh,
they
this-
were
yeah,
personal.
like I said, this barely
Like, come on.
requires response. This is silly.
example he immediately gives is writing the Dark
Madness.
Brotherhood.
Is Mueller just dismissing this, just calling it silly? I'm wondering if he's thinking this actually is valid. He just doesn't want to admit it. But you know what? Let me not speculate or come up with my own crazy little headcanon for what that little phrase from Mueller meant. Just let people know who watch this in the future. That's meant to be ironic.
An Assassin's Guild. And as far as I'm aware, Emil Pagliarello does not have any real-life experience of being
Wait,
in
but-
an
Wait, was that a joke? I heard someone laugh. Maybe what Mueller said about being silly was just being a joke. I heard the context of someone being laughed. Can you joke about a joke or line? I don't know.
assassin.
But we saw, yeah.
But you
and
played
so
the
that's
clip
about the Catholic
where we
Church
laughed
now.
at him for saying what he said. Like,
We were just begging for more.
this supports Creetosis' point of view. Where do you say, like, I can write for the Dark Brotherhood because I'm Catholic? That's hilarious.
Are they going to really misinterpret this? Did they not do their research? Remember, never told people you can watch the video for itself. Not going to do that, boys. Have they gotten beyond doing research for good, solid arguments just because it seems like Never's video didn't have good, solid arguments based on the context that was cut and misrepresented it? Because he doesn't actually go into why this is, or does he?
Like, obviously implied in there is like, well, you're going to be adding a hell of a lot more than what you experienced. Obviously.
Mhm.
Also, the whole thing here about ML not being an assassin, like, yeah, I acknowledge that. ML says it in his own speech. I'm like, okay, but what does your upbringing in Christianity have to do with anything here? You making the Night Mother and Sith as evil versions of the Virgin Mary and God. They don't tell us about like why these choices are made or like anything. There's no
Yeah,
context. It's just a statement that that's something he did.
Is no one going to bring up the point that Creetosis just gave credence to actual Never Knows Best argument here? That's the personal experience. His personal experience in the Catholic Church. His argument that the mythology of the Catholic Church that he raised, personal experience. He applied that story he personally experienced into the story of the Dark Brotherhood. That wasn't firsthand experience. That just bringing that up. I mean, yeah, never could have made that argument. Are all these guys not going to bring up that point that Creetosis just gave his own counter to his own argument or his own thesis? It just contradicts the implication that it comes from his personal experience. If I'm confusing anyone out there, I'm confused by it too. So maybe that's why these guys are.
The final example is from the paper
Oh wow, we're already at the final one. Damn.
plane
Mhm.
section that we
Alright.
heard earlier,
Maybe this one
which
will
is
be
probably
good.
the second most.
Yeah, they just let that little point pass. Maybe they thought that was a joke from Creetosis.
This honestly just makes him look like a complete dickhead here, and it just comes across as an excuse for being lazy and writing a shit story. I have so many problems with this mentality. Just because someone is going to spend 200 hours building shacks doesn't mean they're never going to see the story, as evidenced by all the people who did see the fucking story. I like building shit in games that have that feature. I also want to enjoy a good story in Fallout 4, and got nothing. This is essentially saying that because side content exists that may distract players, they're going to shit all over your story, which is monumentally fucking stupid.
Yeah,
So
he's basically
what
saying side
Emil
content
actually
is in
says-
opposition to the narrative.
That really rags his takeaway. Come on, Mauler, give me something better.
You've talked about is insane.
That is nuts. That's actually that is actually nuts because this taken to not even the extreme, but this taken further is it's only like a main quest. There are no deviations from it. It is a super story focused game where there's no real alleyways or extra pathways or anything like that, which doesn't make them necessarily bad, but it's a much more constricted experience.
Having a dev tell you that as a gamer, as a hardcore lifelong gamer, as all 5 of us, I presume.
This is not a speech directed at gamers. Are they still not getting the point of bringing up the fact what audience Emil is communicating this information to and how he's communicating it? It's just baffling how badly that they're reading this. Is that the process of the EFAP, or is just these particular guys' bias going on the heartstrings of the gamer? Again, Emil's not talking to gamers. What never established in his video, no matter how confusing with the sort of weird joking he does, is this reading of what he's doing here is very uncharitable.
You're just awkwardly sitting there like, but that's not true.
Yeah.
So
Well, how could you say this? This is just
Yeah.
literally not true. Why do you think this? Did you
Because
come up
I've been
with this on your own? Did Todd whisper this in your ear? What's going on?
Writing a story for a game, make sure to remember that players won't always do what you want them to as they play their own way.
No,
No,
but
that's
he
different.
also
That's not what
said
he
he
said.
said that they will rip the pages out of the book and make
Yes.
planes out of them.
Which
Not
it was a
just
jagged
that.
bill.
Not just that, but he says specifically, and they'll never see your story.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, this
bizarre.
is-
Seriously, are they just gonna go along with this bullshit narrative? Okay, maybe I should wait for it. Maybe they'll get to it and come back to it.
Is he implying that the side content is something that you don't want them to do? Because that's the implication here.
Emil's being
Remember-
bossy. No, wait,
Remember,
the
this
video
is
maker
about
being
changing
bossy.
Emil's meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this is outright ignoring shit that he's just shown us that he said. Remember, if we go all the way back to when he said the paper airplane thing, I said as a suggestion that he'll have players pointing out plot holes like actively, like that's something they might do. And I think Fringy was like, "Oh, I think he means that like they could go off trail or whatever." It's like, why would I entertain the idea that people are going to be tearing your story apart if you hadn't implied that with your analogy? I guess I'm just making shit up too.
All right, if someone was to say that someone was tearing apart the story of a game, and I would assume that that would mean they would go to the place where like an in-game cutscene happens, and they're not paying attention. They're putting buckets on people's heads. They're spinning around. They're shooting NPCs. They're just fucking around doing something else. They're looting. They're not paying attention to the story. They're putting obstacles in front of the NPCs. That's the kind of shenaniganery that I would expect he means by that. Not they are engaging in separate, unrelated
Yeah.
side content that we specifically put in the game for them to do.
Like if they went to the achievements and it said 20% of players defeated the final boss, meaning 80% of players just fucked around. You'd be like, well, no, not necessarily. We have that could mean all kinds of different things, statistically speaking. And then we look at those 80% players' playthroughs, and they're focusing entirely on, let's say it's Halo, and they're doing Forge. He's like, so Forge has destroyed their engagement with the game. Like, no, they are engaging with the game. They're just not playing story mode. This is what I mean about like the clarity of his statements.
Welcome to the world of. I mean, just welcome to the world. Not everyone gives a shit about the story you're trying
Exactly.
to
Well, yeah, I
sell.
mean,
they just want to do their
it's-
own thing.
It's
They
if
bought your
this
game,
is
they're
like
entitled to
something
what
that
they
was
want.
really getting in his way. It's like you probably shouldn't be writing for video games,
Yeah.
let alone open world RPGs.
When people spend $60 on your game, they can do what they damn well please with it. It's their experience now. If they just, for instance, I never beat Skyrim. I never beat the main story. Didn't give a fuck. Couldn't care less. I just fucked around, essentially. I did a bunch of dungeons and different quests and just him hauled around, and then I got bored, and then I moved on with my life. I never beat the main story. I literally did not care. It was so unengaging and uninteresting that I think I got to the part where the Blades were like, yo, you should kill.
Rags is actually literally proved Emil's point. And again, keep in mind the audience. It's been so long since they brought up that particular point and they didn't really engage with it very well or even speculate why he might have made that particular joke. So let me remind people, as far as I know, this conference, the audience Emil is talking to, the people Emil is trying to communicate this information to, entertain, and maybe inform, I would assume, are people who create video games or interested in investment in video games. They are not a YouTube audience of gamers. I know people at home watching this EFAP might have forgotten this. Obviously, the cast has.
You know what's funny is I think Metal was like an hour away from the end of God of War Ragnarok. He was like, I've got this side quest to do, which I knew was going to take him like 7 hours. I was like, please, like, please do the end, please. He was like, I'm going to go for the side quest. I was like, no.
The moment of introspection should happen for Emil when you're realizing, like, wait a second, how come people would rather build shacks for 30 hours than engage in my story? Well, obviously, it's the gamers that are wrong.
Yet Creetosis presents this as if Emil is saying,
why doesn't he just call you Litosis at this point, you know?
Yeah.
I speak
don't
only
bother
in
writing
lies.
a story at all, or don't try when writing a story because players might not care about it.
No, well,
Which-
that's not what he said that he said. He said that it seemed like that was kind of what was behind it. Was this like that it was almost an excuse for shitty writing?
So you're saying he lied.
That's an interpretation.
Yes, that is an interpretation, a more fair reading of what he's doing. And keep in mind what he said earlier about if you're trying to look for the context, if someone's trying to tell a joke, or in this particular case, a more comical sort of phrasing that has a punchline, as bad as it might come across to this audience here. Remember, even though Emil is Generation X, he's got the humor of a boomer. At least that's my interpretation of him, given what I know about him. Research can tell you a lot about someone's intent.
Having a dev tell you that as a gamer, as a hardcore lifelong gamer, as all 5 of us, I presume, are, you're just awkwardly sitting there like, but that's not true.
Yeah.
With the glass ceiling broken, all the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
So
Well, how could you say this? This is just
Yeah.
literally not true. Why do you think this? Did you
Because
come up with
when-
this on your own? Did Todd whisper this in your ear? What's going on?
Writing a story for a game, make sure to remember that players won't always do what you want them to as they play their own way.
No,
No,
but
that's
he
different.
also
That's not what
said
he said.
that they will rip the pages out of the book and make
Yes.
planes out of them.
Which
Not
it was a
just
jagged
that.
pill.
Not just
Wait.
that, but he says specifically, and they'll never see your story.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, this
bizarre.
is-
Is he implying that the side content is something that you don't want them to do? Because that's the implication here.
Emil's being
Remember-
naughty. No,
Remember,
wait, the
this is
video maker
about
being naughty.
changing Emil's meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this is outright ignoring shit that he's shown us that he said. Remember, if we go all the way back to when he said the paper airplane thing, I said as a suggestion that he'll have players pointing out plot holes like actively, like that's something they might do. And I think Fringy was like, oh, I think he means that like they could go off trail or whatever. And it's like, why would I entertain the idea that people are going to be tearing your story apart if you hadn't implied that with your analogy? I guess I'm just making shit up too.
All right, if someone was to say that someone was tearing apart the story of a game, and I would assume that that would mean they would go to the place where like an in-game cutscene happens, and they're not paying attention. They're putting buckets on people's heads. They're spinning around. They're shooting NPCs.
I feel like I'm in the multiverse of madness. So many different interpretations different people are getting out of this. My personal interpretation of what Creetosis said was that this is what Emil thinks that players always do and what he literally means. But we're in the multiverse of madness with 7 degrees of different opinions about what that particular line of Emil's meant. When I just keep in mind he's trying to be humorous throughout this sort of discussion with an audience of people interested in developing games. some of them might be as big gamers as these 5 are, but my assumption is that wouldn't be the case.
That's the kind of shenaniganery that I would expect he means by that. Not they are engaging in separate, unrelated
Yeah.
side content that we specifically put in the game for them to do.
Like if they went to the achievements and it said 20% of players defeated the final boss, meaning 80% of players just fucked around. You'd be like, whoa, no, not necessarily. We have no, that could mean all kinds of different things, statistically speaking. And then we look at those 80% players' playthroughs and they're focusing entirely on, let's say it's Halo and they're doing Forge. He's like, so Forge has destroyed their engagement with the game. I was like, no, they are engaging with the game. They're just not playing story mode. This is what I mean about like the clarity of his statements.
Welcome to the world of, I mean, just welcome to the world. Not everyone gives a shit about the story you're trying to sell. They just want to do their own thing.
They bought your game, they're entitled to what they want.
So what would be a fair interpretation of that? If you were talking to a group of people, potentially investing or thinking of writing for story in video games, that bitter pill that you have to realize in writing for video games that some people aren't even going to care about the story, like Rags. How do you stay motivated through that? I don't know. He sort of uses it as a weird great American novel, the expectation versus the reality in writing or video games. And to highlight that, here, let me point out the laughters of the audience listening to this speech from Emil here.
And on every page will be written comedy and tragedy, and it'll be wonderful, it'll be amazing. And you're gonna give this book, this great American novel, to the player. And what are they gonna do with it? They're gonna rip out every page and make paper airplanes out of them. And they're gonna throw them around the room. And they're never gonna see your story. Because the story is there, right? But they are gonna spend 30 hours making shacks, okay? They're gonna spend 20 hours looking for bobbleheads, okay? But that's okay. We know that going in. That's the jagged pill that we swallow when we do this.
Not as pronounced as earlier, but you can still hear it buried in the mix.
Really getting in his way. It's like, you probably shouldn't be writing for video games,
Yeah.
let alone open world RPGs.
When people spend $60 on your game, they can do what they damn well please with it. It's their experience now. If they just, for instance, I never beat Skyrim. I never beat the main story. Didn't give a fuck. Couldn't care less. I just fucked around.
Again, Rags is proving the point that Emil is trying to make here. So I'm not keep repeating myself over again. This speech,
it's not for you. A story at all, or don't try when writing a story because players might not care about it.
No, well, that's not what he said that he said. He said that it seemed like that was kind of what was behind it. Was this like that it was almost an excuse for shitty writing?
So you're saying he lies?
That's an interpretation.
Lies.
That's not a lie.
Lies.
Well, he said that it wasn't implied by ML, and I absolutely feel it was implied that people aren't going to care about the story.
I can see how someone would think that. The first implication
yes, that interpretation. Does Creetosis put that out as his opinion? I remember Joseph Anderson getting mad that everything at the end had an implication of subjectivity. Now, if Rags did, or any of these guys did their research on Creetosis like I did, he tends to imply that his opinions are more objective and that he can determine when someone else's opinions are being said as if they are objective, even if there's nothing to really imply that in their wording.
As somebody who hadn't seen this, your video on this in a while, my look at it was you were either extrapolating or just misunderstanding. He's attributing malice that doesn't need to be attributed.
Well, remember,
Pat for the W. Yeah, I agree. One of the things I didn't like about Never's video does lean a little bit too heavy into attributing a certain intent, but that might also play into the sort of ironic, let's see how you feel it tone that this video projects, that they're sort of labeling Never with that hypocritical argument here. Yes, a lot of Never's video comes across as hypocritical and him pulling certain claims from the weakest amount of evidence. I see that as him giving these guys a taste of their own medicine, but that's just my subjective viewpoint. And maybe I would respect these guys a little bit more and think higher of their opinion. They actually fucking acknowledge that the audience Emil is talking about is relevant to a lot of what Never is talking about with this.
but it's either that it was malicious or that he can't read.
Retard or evil.
Yeah, exactly. Retosis.
Way Western game.
Yes, this is why I like my 4 Ds. A, dumb. D, dishonest. C, delusional. Or D, all of above. Much more fair and funny method to label these sort of things, because you don't know the intent for some of the wild interpretation Creetosis typically lays out there. But typically the spin of his videos, from what I've seen, is that his opinions are objective. But that could be a misunderstanding of his content from me.
Openly, Creetosis seems to hate Emil, and this is just one of several videos Creetosis has made
Hate
about
Emil?
him.
Jeez.
Whoa, one of
This
several.
guy needs to, like, I know it's a meme, but some people actually do need to touch grass.
Yeah, Creetosis, listen to Rags. Why bother spending your time hating Emil? Because there's definitely enough evidence within Creetosis videos for anyone to do research to make a claim like it definitely seems like Creetosis hates Emil and Bethesda as a whole. Probably Todd Howard too. Don't quote me on that. Don't have my references to back that up with.
We'll do better
Ooh.
with ML gone.
Maybe. We've encountered a lot of people in the world of film that, I wouldn't say anything else. That's fine.
If a chef burns every meal he makes, he should be fired. If a surgeon loses every patient he has, he should be fired.
Well, to be
If
fair,
every
hospitals
story-
are big.
Yeah, like they.
Great response to the Creetosis call to action. Pat brought up the call to action earlier. Let's see how they react to this one and the turnaround from Never.
Might save
Well,
the
and
next
you've never
one.
been a surgeon. How would you know?
Ooh. How can you tell when someone's alive if you're not a surgeon?
Yeah, Emil is like a surgeon with storytelling.
There you go.
He's precise and he knows what to cut and what to fix. He's an
If
artist.
And he
Writer-
keeps it simple.
Makes us
does.
dog shit, they should be fired.
I do wonder, what about YouTubers who make low quality videos that are full of
Ooh.
misrepresentations,
Ooh, I
Ooh.
know the answer to this. Never
Oh,
knows
we
best.
cover them on EFAP. We cover them on EFAP.
Yeah.
contradictions, and outright hate?
Outright hate. Ugh, boring.
Saying that
What
Emil
should happen to
Pagliarulo
the-
sucks at writing is hate
What,
speech.
what should happen to them? Oh my god.
They
Well,
should be destroyed.
The funny thing is, he qualifies for all the things you just referenced. So whatever you decide, sir, you'll be getting it too.
Them.
They should
Also, what about like this? Feels a little bit targety, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was.
No,
referring to
Creetosis is the
earlier.
center of the
Service.
screen. All of these things, like,
All of the videos there.
he's
you
been
know,
moved
Guys,
around.
guys, spoilers.
oh, really?
What? Really?
Oh my god.
Oh my! Oh, let's just forget about this. We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
Forget.
be fired.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. YouTubers are often allowed to say whatever they want, and usually they
horror.
get
I was about to say, wait, what?
Usually they
Like,
get away with it.
we are in a world
Just getting away with it.
where people are allowed
You
to
can't
say
keep
what they
getting
think.
away with it.
this second video is arguably worse than the previous one.
Well, you've shown
Oh,
that.
word.
You've
Why
shown
didn't
that.
you argue it?
Damn, did they miss Never turning that around on Creetosis? I'm sure it wasn't on purpose, but I am curious why, when Creetosis actually sort of had a very strong implication to a call to action that Emil should be fired, that doesn't even really get brought up.
Do you think if he heard you call him a cunt, he would have been like, "Oh,
I think the point was the call to action of Creetosis, at least the strong implication of it. But take nothing in Never videos anywhat seriously at all. Good way to be good faith, guys. I guess if I want good faith criticism, I should go someplace else, a different audience.
That's
And we're
also been
measuring
for years.
success by view count. What about success by like getting the message across or something like that, or like making a good video?
And Pat bringing up getting the message across in reference to this particular video when Never just sort of pointed out that the call to action was that Emil should be fired seems a little weird. Definitely Creetosis's Fallout 3 isn't better than you think. It's sort of overarching theme, if you want to call it, is that many a true nerd is a disingenuous, dishonest defender of a objectively horrible game that Fallout 3 is definitely is. And he misrepresents Fallout New Vegas too, and the content creators that he talks about to a excessive degree, which is why I responded to it.
That's real. What's the point of
Yes.
giving you the choice if it's
It's
not
an
a
illusion.
choice?
It's all illusory.
You think Fallout's about choice?
Well, I guess
Not
that's
anymore.
because that's what I've heard about Fallout 1 and 2 is that the amount of player agency is kind of
Yes.
staggering.
well, to the
Yeah.
point where famously you can like convince the main bad guy to kill himself, whatever, right? If you have the right build.
Yeah.
I think that's where the meme comes from, isn't it?
It's not just the right build; it's having the right information in Fallout 1. In New Vegas, it is the right build.
All
Right, where like where if you're paying attention to the story and you know the details, then it's like
Yeah.
okay, you've been rewarded. So which
I'm
I mean,
tempted to
all
go
of
off
this
on a
is
tangent
part
on
of it.
that.
Well, I guess the point being that all of this is going to be filtering into how, because that's the thing that I heard a lot about Fallout 4 was that the dialogue was not just that it was like poorly written, but that the nature of the choices that you have, the gameplay portion of that system was really lacking. And I'm just saying, like, surely all of this has to be part of the discussion, because how does the story arise that this guy sucks if his writing is great and everybody loves it?
That's not what this video is about. This video is establishing the sort of echo effect of information over time, how rumors and what people say on Reddit translates to YouTube, and YouTube eventually translates to article being strung out, and more people going along with something that doesn't seem like it's even true, like Pat Doe design document thesis that he just throws out there based off of some of the smallest amount of information. That's what all of this is building up to. I agree. Meta could have laid this all out, presented it very cleanly, concisely, in a much more fair and balanced way that would have represented it much better, as I probably would have done if I was trying to do the script. But I don't know if it would have had the same impact if he took that approach. I get the impression from that video and several of his other videos that this is an oddity on his channel. So he must have thought very strongly about getting this out to as many people as possible, willing to take the criticism for his very misleading baitish video if people actually understood the concept that we don't know what Emil wrote, and that Pat made up the no design document. Yes, he clarified it right here, but he turned it into a meme that spread throughout the internet. I'm curious how they'll actually deal with that argument when it comes up. But yes, if Fringy or any of these guys did their research, they'll know Never Knows Best's favorite Fallout was Fallout 1. As for the rest, I don't know. He keeps it rather vague, given criticisms to each. Sounds like he put Fallout 2 as probably the most significantly overall well-designed, but it's not clear from his coverage of that exactly, because you never know which game is the best, I guess.
If you had the audacity to say anything bad about these games, the amount of pushback and vitriol you got was insane.
Thank you, by the way, for playing this clip after giving him a bunch of vitriol for his comments on
Well,
the game.
and the weird thing is, how's he not a victim?
So he's trying to frame this, obviously, as playing the victim. It's not really. It's more pointing out that when you're critical of things people like, you're going to get people who are just shit on you for it.
Yeah.
There's
You're
so
still
many comments
victimized,
I've
even if you don't
gotten
feel
where
that
it's
bad about it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go by
but-
strict definitions, sure, but at that point, like, that's why
Especially since he defines it as harassment. So
I was going to say, by his definition, yes, but what a boring fucking definition
Yeah.
where a bunch of people say they disagree. It's like, I am the victim now.
Again, I have to point out, Creetosis considers me tagging him in a community post as harassment, because I tagged him in a community post because I was going to go over the Never video and his response, maybe even Pat's response, mainly to show to anyone who comes to my channel, I try to be very fair with the criticisms I try to form about people. Maybe I'll even put my Discord label on this for any EFAP fans who wants to come for me after this video, because I want pushback to my criticism. I'm not just going to label them all as disingenuous, dishonest harassers who are obsessed with me. Like, obviously, Creetosis is willing to sink to.
Sure, that must have been very hard for you to deal with. But you do say on multiple occasions how much you believe in criticism
Okay.
and how important and valuable you think it is. You even say as much in this
Yeah,
video
you're gonna give a
when
taste of
complaining.
your own medicine,
Oh,
stinky boy.
we're getting into
Well, and-
weird places now.
Yeah, that's sort of the feeling I got from this video. Thank you, Rags, for illustrating so many of my points. Maybe Rags isn't that bad of a guy after all, you know. I mean, I'm sure he's not being ultra ironic or anything like that in any of this commentary. So, thanks, Rags. I always like to have supporting evidence to sort of back up my educated opinion on at least particular matters I know about. And sometimes the most uninformed on a particular subject matter can read it the best. Good instincts, doggo, Rags.
Like
some
isn't this the
random
same
guy
thing-
saying you did a bad job isn't criticism. It's just an attack.
This
Not
is what I
every
mean,
comment is criticism.
Are we running from his definitions or our own now? Because like
That-
him
that's
being
my-
like,
that's my-
oh, sad little
You know, I was trying to move past this, but this is just giving me so much. I'm liking Mueller bringing this particular matter up.
little
Yeah.
muffin getting attacked. It's like, this is what you said at the beginning for fucking Emil. So what's going on?
But if someone says you made a shit video, that's not a criticism because there's nothing actionable about saying that. It's just a statement of opinion.
At the same time, like I don't care. You know what I mean? Like if someone
Yeah.
said you made a shit,
No, I
it's
don't
like,
care,
okay.
but I don't care. But somebody saying that I did a shit job, it isn't criticism.
He's like, what do you want me to do with that?
Make not
Oh,
shit next
okay.
time. I'm not gonna tell you how, but
Legitimately, is this really what Pat thinks this video is all about? Is he that media illiterate, or does he have to just bring it up for his particular narrative? Because yeah, Never's particular instances, examples are rather weak against Creetosis being part of the problem in the perception of Emil. I think he definitely did contribute to his ultimate goal of this. And definitely a lot of his framing, which comes across as get a taste of your own medicine with this, is worth criticizing. And I'm pretty sure a lot of this is reflected in my own sort of viewing night of the video coming out. Even though this video I'm making right now is going to be covering mainly the Creetosis and Pat section and mainly EFAP sort of reaction to this video about them, I'll also be including parts where they accurately represent or have at least a conversation about some of the subject matters that was blatantly obvious to me that never brought up in his video, or if they didn't bring them up at all, which would definitely put all the members of EFAP onto my 4Ds: dumb, dishonest, delusional, or D, all of above. Yeah, I'm sort of trying to make that a meme. Spread it around, folks. No trademark here. Well, that's the end of this particular video. Hope it wasn't too long for people out there. And yeah, it's just a small sample of a rather one-sided knockdown from a rather long stream. Not done with this particular thing until I sort of go over some key points within the 10-hour EFAP 270 episode and sort of highlight some points and maybe even bring on some guests, either counter me or maybe even accentuate my point with their own experience and expertise. We'll see how that turns out. So all I'll say for now is Avayo.